we are going to have on a guest on the stream. We're going to bring on Tori, who is helping us coordinate a fundraiser this week for streaming for trans equality. I'm going to go ahead and give them a call.
Hi, Graham. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm just getting my my stuff set up here. We are this week raising funds for streaming for trans equality. These donations will be going to Trans Legal Defense and Education Fund and Trans Lifeline, who we have raised money for before. Tori, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do and what this fundraiser's for.
Yeah, happy to. I'm realizing that I'm joining with my Discord username as like what's popping up here. So if people want to call me Tori Babes, that's fine. My name is Victoria Foster. I'm the annual fund officer at the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund, which is soon to become Advocates for Trans Equality. We recently announced a merger with the National Center for Transgender Equality to become a new organization. That merger is still pending. So when you say that we are raising money for the Trans Legal Defense and Education Fund, you're not wrong, but the genesis of this week is to help kick off our new organization, Advocates for Trans Equality, as we've merged in this time that it's no secret to you or your chat that is a very fraught time for trans people and non-binary people in the United States and across the world. And we've merged our two organizations together to really go on the offensive for our community against the well-funded anti-trans movement, and I'd be so thrilled to get into that more. I'm so thrilled to be here today, and I'm so grateful that you're choosing to fundraise for us this month.
Absolutely. And just for chat, could you give us your pronouns?
Oh, duh. Yeah, just she, her pronouns for me.
Her pronouns, perfect. And for if you guys cut any of this for your own, promotional, he, him for me, filthy cishet, you know how it is. So why don't you first tell us a little bit about the organization itself, what kind of services it provides. Like I said, we've done fundraisers for this. I don't know if you remember the Hold the Fort that took place, I believe, last year.
Oh, yeah.
A friend of mine, Emma, put that on. It was like 100 streamers playing Fortnite, raising funds. So go ahead and tell us, a little bit about what the organization does now and what this kind of merger and I guess reinventing of the organization structure is going to be providing to people.
Yeah, I mean, as an aside, Emma, huge ally of the organization. We love working with Emma. We're so grateful for Hold the Fort last year and for your participation and everybody else that participated. And, as you said, Hold the Fort was a fundraiser for the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund, which was founded in 2003. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary last year. For our whole history, we have advocated for trans people in the court system, and that can take on many different lenses. That can take on name changes, which is one of our more prominent programs. We help connect low-income trans people to name change resources in 5 different states, major cities in 5 different states, I should say. So Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Atlanta, New York, and then we've got some outlets in Long Island and in New Jersey as well. So a lot of that court work has to do with that. That is a program that we've had for over 15 years now. I got my name changed through Tildef's Name Change Project, and highly encourage anyone watching that is living in one of those areas to go to our website, tldef.org, and tap into our name change project and see how we can help you get your name changed. But of course, outside of name changes, our court advocacy also extends into litigation. We consider this part of our work to be called impact litigation. So we're a small team. We do have a national focus, but we're a small team of lawyers. We receive help from pro bono partners across the country, lawyers who extend their time to us for free as a volunteer service because they're with the cause and they're interested in helping us change this country for the better for trans people. Some of the more notable cases that we've won, we won a recent case in upstate New York that changed the way that prisons treat trans women in upstate New York. One of our clients was incarcerated and faced untold and shocking and probably TOS violating levels of abuse at the hands of the prison system. And we were able to win a case that changed the rules for how prisons see trans women and how they assign trans women to cells, the protections that we have in place for trans women across multiple counties in upstate New York. So we go from things that have to do with prisons. We had that case in upstate New York. We also had a case in Miami-Dade County in Florida that changed similarly policies for incarcerated trans people following just incredible amounts of abuse and neglect that trans people were facing in Florida as well.
It's a
So
big win,
we
especially
attacked
in Florida. That's not an easy win.
not an easy win at all. And I mean, even after we win, there were still wins that need to happen because the jails need to, follow up, and they need to do the things that we agreed that they would do in the court. And so it's an ongoing process that we're always holding these people's feet to the fire. Not only when we win, but well after we win, that continues on for many months and years to come. So that work in the prisons. We also do a lot of health advocacy through our Trans Health Project. We have a website set up that lists all 50 states and lists the best way to get access to trans health care through the insurance system in all 50 states. We help trans people navigate appeals. So, for example, right now, I'm in the middle of an appeal for facial feminization surgery. My insurance denied that because they considered it to be cosmetic, even though facial feminization surgery is medically necessary. And that has been proven time and time again. That follows the WPATH standards of care, which is what lots of different insurers across the country are supposed to be using, including my current insurer. And so we're in the middle of an appeals process that will force them to actually follow those WPATH standards of care and not deny my FFS for cosmetic reasons. And that can extend whenever we, in the private sector, it can be hard to win a precedent-setting case against the private sector. It's very well funded. You're going against one insurance company, not all the insurance companies. There's a morass there of legalese and bureaucracy that make it difficult for a small organization like ours to win a precedent-setting case against the private insurance industry. But if we take on a state or federal government insurer, that provides a pathway for us to win a case and to make a new law. And just recently, we have done as much in Georgia. Employees that receive their healthcare through the state employee benefits program in the state of Georgia, before we tried this case where a trans woman who was an employee of the state of Georgia was denied care, very similarly to how I just described being denied care. But that is, we've won cases in multiple states that has established a precedent that the government cannot deny people access to healthcare if they are state employees of that state on the basis of race or gender. These are precedents that were established for other social movements previously in history that we are now extending into the realm of trans rights. And so accordingly, we sued the state of Georgia and we won. And we are in the process of enacting laws and legislation that will grant access to trans-affirming healthcare to hundreds of thousands of people in the state of Georgia. So when it comes to name changes, prison reform, health insurance advocacy, TILDEF has been on the front lines of that work since 2003. And as I mentioned earlier, we're now merging with another organization called the National Center for Transgender Equality, and our new name will be called Advocates for Trans Equality. Whereas we've dealt with things on the legal side for years, they've been fighting the fight for trans people on the political side for years. They're based in Washington, D.C. They are a 501c3 and a 501c4, which not to get too technical, but that means that they're allowed to endorse candidates, 501c3s, not necessarily allowed to get involved in certain realms of political advocacy, but NCTE has been lobbying on behalf of trans people for years and years. And so the genesis of us bringing our programs together is rooted in this current moment of anti-trans legislation. So when we were fighting against anti-trans legislation, we had to wait for this bad bill to be passed. Then we try it in court. Whereas on the other hand, they would advocate it against it in legislation, in the legislature, in the White House, and all forms of government. But as soon as it got passed, they didn't have the recourse or the resources to try that any further. They could not they're not a legal organization. So as soon as something becomes law, they couldn't overturn that. Now with our forces combined, if a bad bill starts, we can fight it at every single level. We can lobby against it when it's being passed. We can overturn it after it's been passed. We can fight that fight on multiple fronts. And so it's really just a measure of how we're willing to step up in this current moment and try new things, because nonprofit mergers, not something you hear about a lot. I think people are generally averse to the idea of a merger, but
Well, it's
the
diversity of
idea
tactics.
yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And to bring those all in house, we're all collaborating on each other on a great basis. So like everything was so reactive before, right? Like we hear about something that's getting passed in this far-flung state, then we have to react and we have to see our resources in that state and then see if we can do something about it. When we're all in the same building together, all working together, we can all collaborate on like what is the worst bill? What is the trend in bills? Because NCTE has been tracking. Anti-trans legislation is not a monolith. It's athletics, it's access to hormones, it's prison reform, it's all these different things. So when they're keeping track of what our opponents really want to get through, and we can be in lockstep and suing against the wins that our opponents have, it just makes our fight so much more efficient, and it really allows us to stand up against an opposition that, I say again, is incredibly well funded. And so when we combine our resources, it's not just tactical, but it's also financial. And when yourself and any viewers and chatters decide to support us in that way, it really, really makes a difference, especially in this current moment. When anti-trans legislation is continuing to run so rampant. So
Well, let's talk
that's
about
my
let's
yeah.
talk about anti-trans legislation for a moment. What is the state of the kind of anti-trans? I don't want to say movement because it's entirely astroturfed, but what does that kind of coalition of NGOs, think tanks, politicians, and political activists? What does the anti-trans movement look like? Because this morning we looked at a clip quote tweeting a statement from the American College of Pediatricians, not a college or pediatricians, but namesake regardless. Very devastating, obviously, because it kind of dawns the aesthetics of intelligentsia and official kind of demeanor. What does it look like, both from someone who is not involved in the organization, who is just a normal, trans person existing or trying to exist in America, and from an organization like yours?
It looks like, on the face of it, I mean, it looks differently based on who you are. So if you're a trans kid, you're in like a target like that, whether it's athletics or access to hormones, the way that we treat people in schools, there's bills surrounding, do people need to be forced to use pronouns or things like that, so it really depends on where you are and who you are and how old you are. But that's of course a gateway to expanding it into other areas. And so I think when anti-trans legislation began to really patch the cultural moment that it is currently experiencing, there was a lot of terms being couched in, we're just trying to protect kids, this is a battle for family rights, etc. But we've already seen that they will take the opportunity to extend that beyond the age of 18 to just make it harder for trans people to live in general, to access the hormones they need. Like for the examples that I've already said, to get access to insurance. If you get incarcerated, your life will be dramatically altered in such a horrific way. And so in terms of like the way that it's experienced per trans person in this country, again, very dependent on where you are, but let's say that you're somebody that is living in like Florida, for example, I mean, it's hard for me to, I can't sit here and pretend like things are going to get better immediately. The issue is, like I said, the genesis for us merging together so we don't have to do this anymore. But as it stands, we still haven't really gotten our feet running in this respect. So we're still reacting to things. Things move through the legislature in a state like Florida that has such Republican dominance with such a swiftness and such little pushback. And they're so much more well funded. They can spend ads on TV, which, I mean, I don't think you or me are going to have our opinions changed based on what we see on TV, but a lot of people obviously do. And so when they can control the cultural sort of zeitgeist surrounding trans rights as it relates to what they see on TV, what they see on the news, that is a sort of a battle of the mind, that we are really trying to get into in terms of our lobbying efforts and our advocacy efforts. I carry the personal belief that, I don't think the median person in this country is transphobic. I think they may say some transphobic things or maybe some things that are a little bit problematic, but at the end of the day, they are able to support us or come around. Basically, their stance is, I don't get it and I don't whatever, but you live your life. And essentially, that is a pathway for us to win over hearts and minds as it relates to this issue. And that requires us having more focus on us, having more visibility, having more funding in order to do that. We're just so far behind the eight ball in terms of like our opposition. They have all these lawyers. They're in the pockets of all these legislators. That it's, if the Manhattan Institute wants anti-trans legislation to be the thing, it will be the thing. We can't wave a magic wand just like they can and suddenly change the course of what is being discussed in this country. Once we build the resources, once we're able to get to a level where we can match that, I think that the tides of things are going to change. And unfortunately, with the way that the Supreme Court is made up, with the amount of trans cases that are being taken on in the court system, in the lower level courts, I'm not, don't mistake me in saying that the Supreme Court is trying a trans case or anything like that. We have no evidence of that right now. But the reality remains, the court is majority Republican. There is lower courts and appellate courts that are taking on cases and trying to defend trans people, and then their opponents will retry the case at a higher level of court. And that can only continue for so long with such a conservative court majority without something being taken at such a high level. And so that's the sort of threat that looms down the road that could be really disastrous for people beyond just the very regionalized issues that I was describing earlier. This could become a nationwide issue very fast. And so that's why we've got to act fast, and we're trying to raise money, and we're trying to get things together so that we can fight them on that national stage.
So we were talking before we had before you and I got on a call, kind of about where we are in the election. How does the organization feel currently about the Biden administration's actions on not just trans equality, but on the broader LGBTQ community, especially during Pride Month? Is it more of a kind of cynical, showing LED lights on the White House in the form of the Pride flag? Where do you feel like the Biden administration is on trans equality?
The reality is, and as much as I don't like it, and as much as nobody likes it, at the end of the day, in November, it is going to be Donald Trump or Joe Biden. And when it comes to if we draw a comparison between the two, it's night and day. Even if Joe Biden could be doing a lot more, and the Biden administration and the White House could do a lot more for our community, and to actually enact protections for our community, and to take this fight to the bigger stage, and to fund this fight on our side of the fight at a bigger stage. All of those things could get better, but at the end of the day, it, unfortunately, little movement is better than dramatically negative movement in the opposite direction, which is what Donald Trump has said that he is going to do. And if we have to take him at his word, especially given his first term, the people that he staffed the White House with, all of the bureaucratic positions that ultimately may have more power in terms of the minutia of different issues than the president would. Those are positions that we would rather have a Democrat in the White House putting progressive people into those positions, or even vaguely progressive, vaguely centrist Dem, as opposed to staunchly right-wing QAnon level people staffing all of these different positions. And so, yes, we obviously want more. Everybody wants more, and we would love for more progress to be made from the White House, and from beyond just the White House. I mean, the entire Democratic establishment could really zhuzh up our efforts quite a lot more if they chose to, and we wish that they would choose to. But given the reality of the situation, we'll take that as opposed to actively antagonistic Donald Trump in the White House with a Republican Supreme Court. The combination of those two things, the ramifications can't be understated. That would be a disaster for trans people in this country. And as a result, one half that I mentioned, A4TE, Advocates for Trans Equality, will be the result of the merger between the Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund and the National Center for Transgender Equality. As I said, as a 501c3, we could not endorse somebody for president. As a 501c4, they could. The National Center for Transgender Equality has endorsed Joe Biden for president, and I think it's rooted in what I had just described. We cannot let Donald Trump and a Republican Supreme Court dictate the terms of trans rights in this country when it is such a firebrand issue.
Yeah, and it is worth noting that it's more of a letdown on the national Democratic Party front. The Democratic House and Senate and executive are kind of asleep at the wheel on the issue, but in state and local states like Minnesota are doing really good work to push forward protections for not just people within Minnesota, but those who would be traveling to Minnesota, either for temporary, treatments, for, care, or, relocating to Minnesota. It is worth noting that there is some movement on the Democratic front, but more localized. And those are appreciated, but it is more of a example set for the National Democratic Party that is kind of being missed, but, the small wins that we can get, I suppose, are, not worth nothing. To kind of dovetail into what you were talking about with, November coming up and the endorsement of Joe Biden for president in 2024 from the organization, you and I talked kind of briefly about it whenever we were chatting the other day. I have been discussing a lot about the kind of counter narratives against the Queers for Palestine movement over the last 8 months. There is a deep issue with kind of the cynical weaponization of identity politics, especially rainbow washing, pink washing for Israel and its continued genocide. Could you give me kind of your perspective on when we see the counter narratives of, you're trans for Palestine, you're gay for Palestine, you wouldn't be able to exist in these areas, despite that institutions like Queering the Map have done a very good job of illustrating what queer existence looks like, not just within Gaza, but also within the West Bank. Could you kind of give me your perspective on what that counter narrative kind of looks like to you, kind of represents within the current conversation about trans equality and broadly speaking, LGBTQ equality?
The nauseating thing about everything that I just described is that it can both be true that Joe Biden would be better for trans people in this country, as laughable as a statement as that is, than Donald Trump would be. But at the end of the day, Joe Biden and the Democratic Party can be that and can also use that as a shield from any criticism about the situation in Gaza and in the situation in Palestine, and for their not even situation, their tacit support and their funding. And this entire war is at the feet of the American empire and at the American state. And so when we move in the space where we have to accept that I'm a trans woman and I am surrounded by trans people and I want the best for our community. And unfortunately, given what the circumstances that we are subjected to, what's best for our community is to support a Democrat in the White House who is helping carry out a genocide in Gaza. And it's cynical, it's nauseating, it makes those of us that work in the movement want to do everything that we can to try and mitigate this horrific dichotomy that we're seeing right now. I'm currently wearing my, it's down there, my Union of Legal Workers for Trans Liberation pin. That is our staff union at A4TE. We've been in support of Palestine since October of last year. We're part of the the Association of Legal Aid Attorneys, ALAA, which has been in the news over the past few months as our president is currently being deposed in front of the House of Representatives by the vaunted Virginia Fox for our position on Palestine. We passed a resolution as a union that would call upon our own divestment from Israel, call upon the wider UAW International to divest from Israel, and to make a firm statement that says, we believe what is happening is a genocide. We believe that Palestine should be free from the river to the sea, and that is being under fire for, we got sued by a member of our own union, not in TILDEF or not in A4TE, but in the wider ALAA union. A member of the union sued against their own union because they were so uncomfortable with this reality. This fight goes into the trans space, it goes into the union space, it goes into all these different spaces. At the end of the day, myself as an individual in this country that requires us to all be individuals, I can do what I can in my own respect. I can be with my union and try to do things together. And we will march, we will divest, we will call upon, and we in meetings. I mean, our president met with Joe Biden at the beginning of this year and had 5 seconds of FaceTime. And in that 5 seconds of FaceTime, she chose to speak about Palestine, not about legal aid attorneys, not about the things that our union or really, the White House would want to talk to us about. We're not going to be used to deflect from this issue. We will continue to hold your feet to the fire on that issue. And so, I mean, it's decidedly uncomfortable, and I don't feel amazing about anything that I've just said, but it is unfortunately reality that I'm living under and that we all find ourselves under.
So to kind of wrap things up into a neat bow here, with the fundraiser that we'll be doing this week on the stream for your organization, in the immediate, where are these funds that people are giving to the organization? Where are they going? And is there any other way that people can, if they want to get involved with the organization, where can they go? Who can they talk to? Kind of give us a good little encapsulation of, what we're helping out with.
Yeah, for sure. The immediacy is staffing our new organization. With the new national limelight, we want to expand our name change project. Just being in 5 states as a national organization is quickly not going to be enough. We want to change trans people's names in 50 states. We need the funds to do that. And so funds will go and support our legal programs in terms of us changing more names, us carrying out more lawsuits. As I said, we are a small team. We can only take on less than a handful of lawsuits in a given year. If we are able to get more money and expand our team, we take on more cases. We win more cases because when we fight, we win. We have a very winning track record of winning cases, and we want to win more. So when people support us, they get us more name changes, they win us more lawsuits, they get more bodies in the room in these sort of hallowed halls of Congress and in legislatures across the country. We want to advocate at the top level, but we want to be in Florida. We want to be in Wyoming. We want to be in Idaho. We want to be in all these different states where these bills are being started at a small level, picking up momentum. And then by the time they have snowballed into this big bill on the national stage, we want to stop that from happening. And so when people support us, they're able to, it results in, what's the word? Like in deliverables. We deliver on new amounts of names changed, on new amounts of cases won, in new amounts of good bills being passed, because you mentioned it earlier. It's not all just bad bills. There are good bills that are being passed. We are instrumental in advising the legislators. What do trans people want? What do trans people need? What is the best way to phrase these things? What is the best additional writers that we can slide into bills to try and support trans people? And so through all these efforts, through the fundraising that folks are doing, such as yourself, it enables us to deliver more deliverables like that. And if anybody interested in the stream wants to join in, our Tiltify event page for streaming for trans equality is a great place to start. People can stream themselves, and we do not ask anything of anybody who chooses to fundraise for us. You can fundraise for us at any time, doing anything you want, talking about anything you want. If you're fundraising for us in the month of June, we're just grateful for that. And so if you choose to do so, you can register at our Tiltify page and you can fundraise yourself. If you want, you can throw a pride party with a little QR code on the door that says, hey, donate and support trans rights, send us $5 so you can come in and party with us. These are all these different creative ways where maybe you don't have the money, not you, Gremloe, but if anybody watching, if I'm sitting here watching and I don't have the money, I can connect the organization to maybe some other people that do, or I can collect 10 $1 donations, and then boom, I'm sending $10. There's so many creative ways to support the organization in this given moment. And I would encourage anybody who is interested to reach out to me personally. You can reach out to me at vfoster@transgenderlegal.org. That's vfoster@transgenderlegal.org. And we can connect. Let's make something happen. I can make a customized donation form for your event. We can create some custom branding for your event. We want to support you supporting us. So anybody that is watching, stream for us, fundraise for us, donate to us, or get tapped in with me, and let's do something cool together.
Fantastic. And chat, the link to the donation page is at the top of chat. Go and donate there. Tori, thank you so much for coming on and directing me to the charity. We'll be running it all week. If you or anyone else from the org would like to come on and have a chat this week, definitely reach out to me. And chat, trans rights, free Palestine.
Trans rights and free Palestine. Thanks so much, Grem.
Thank you. Have a good one. All right, everybody. The links are at the top of chat. You can find them there.